Hello. Welcome back, everyone. Please help me welcome Trina Lemper, Rise Next, to the stage. Trina Lemper is the CEO of Rise Next Corporation, a strategy and technology company focused on social impact. She is the co-founder of TechMoms.org, a 501c3 nonprofit focused on removing barriers, creating community networks, and expanding diverse female tech talent. Trina has 30 years in the high-tech industry, including time at Novell, eBay, and Oracle.
Thank you. I got a mic on, so I think we're good. We don't want to double mic it today. How's everybody? Post-snack, lunch? We'll try and keep the energy high today because I know we're end of day and it's going to be maybe a rough one, but this is going to be a fun conversation, and it's going to be conversational. For those, it looks like we have mass group at the back. I'm going to still try and engage you. We're going to do some polling today, so keep your phones at the ready. We're going to have some fun today, okay? But like you said, my name is Trina, and I'm very passionate about more women in the tech industry, and hopefully today's session you're going to learn and have some actions. We're going to not just talk today. I want some actions for everybody that you can take and implement, whether you're a leader, non-leader, within the workforce, just to understand the reasons why it's important for each and every one of us to get involved in diversity and finding pathways for women into the tech industry and finding ways to retain them there. So that's the goal for today. So, like I said, about those phones, we're going to do some polling. Anybody done some of these live polling sessions? It's pretty fun way to get engaged, kind of learn how things are going. So scan that QR code. It's going to take you to slido.com and put in FLGISA 22. And once you're there, we're going to take our first little test poll. So I want you to use an emoji, okay? We're going to make it a little fun. Use an emoji to answer, how do you feel about day one of FLGISA? How's it going? How's it going so far? We're just going to test this out, see what we think. So we got a couple in. We got some smiley faces. It's really cool. This is super cool. Super cool FLGISA. That's going to be your new motto. You're going to have FLGISA, super cool.
That's right.
That's right. So that's fun. What else have we got here? We got some party time. Some people partying it up out there. Having some fun. Lots of hearts. Super fire. Okay, somebody in here is cold, right? In this conference right now. I know I am. I should brought up some tissues. Kind of wipe my nose a little bit. All right. So I don't have any popcorn. Whoever put the popcorn there, we didn't bring the popcorn machine. Next time I'll take note. We'll have that. So hopefully everybody's having some fun here. So I wanted to do an introduction of who I am and why I'm up here and what I'm going to be talking about today. So just a quick introduction, and this slide is going to come up later on, and I'm going to layer on some more, but just an introduction. As I mentioned, I've been in the tech industry for 30 years. I've worked for companies like Novell, Oracle, eBay, did two-stinter. We were joking at lunch with somebody that Oracle always is the two-stinter. You leave, come back, leave, come back. But I've had this really amazing career in tech. And as I started my career, what I recognized is I'd look around the room and go, where are all the other women? It's changing a little bit now after 30 years, but still some challenges. In fact, I wrote my thesis paper when I did my computer science degree on why women should go into computer science 25 years ago. And guess what? The numbers are worse now. Yeah. That's not okay, and that's why I'm passionate about the work that I'm doing, and what I'm going to be talking about today is because throughout my career, I've seen some key themes in what is the barriers for women getting into the industry, and then also how can we retain them there. So I got really involved in steering committees from employee resource groups. Oracle had their Women in Leadership organization. I got involved. At eBay, I started getting involved in steering committees and really understanding how do we create change within our organization, how do we better enable, hire, promote, and engage the women in our organization, and eventually became the global president of Women in IT, overseeing 1,500 members in 17 countries, running initiatives like this. One of those programs I ran was coding camps for employees' daughters. And that was really amazing because it got all of our employees super engaged in understanding this isn't just somebody else on my team that's impacted. These are my daughters. These are my wives. These are our aunts. These are my friends that are being impacted by the challenges that we're going to be talking about today. So it really creates a different sense of perspective. And what I realized is that not only should we be looking at our children, we have this hugely underserved talent pool in our women and moms that are at home or in different jobs at different companies. And so started putting together coding camps for women. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about where that came. But while I was at eBay, one of the biggest challenges that I saw is probably what a lot of you are feeling, which is, okay, I want to hire more women, where are they? Anybody feeling like that, you can throw your hand up, right? Where are the women at? Same thing, me looking around the room, where are the women at? Well, I'm going to tell you, you can create them. You can find them. They are out there and they're seeking and they're looking to get in. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey with Tech Moms and how we enabled that. So, next question. No right or wrong here. One or two words or a phrase. What describes to you a great leader? And you can put in more than one. There's a couple that really are the big ones. What makes a great leader? Influencer, fearless, attitude, empathy. I love that. We're going to talk about empathetic leadership today. All right, we've got honest, patient, caring, firm, fair, consistent, teacher, enthusiastic, great communicator, presence, vulnerability. That's a great one. Do we know it all? Does anybody here know it all? Oh, we know it. Oh, you should be up here. You should be up here talking. There's a lot of things. When we think leader, that's a lot, right? That's a lot on us. Does anybody ever get overwhelmed? Get overwhelmed and go, oh my gosh, leadership, right? There's all, especially in the tech space, having been in tech and been a tech leader for many years, you've got to know all the technology aspects and the people aspects at the same time. And I remember moving from technology into leadership, and it's a big jump, right? Not just having to know just the focus on technology, but the people side of it and that high focus that we need to put on the people to enable them to now run and execute on the technology side. So today's agenda. There's 6 things we can talk about. What I want to do though is we can't talk about everything in 40 to 50 minutes. I'm going to try and leave some time at the end for questions. So what I'm going to do, we're going to talk, some areas I'll go deeper, some will come more high level, but I want kind of your guidance on which of these areas we should focus on. So we're going to go into an introduction of why women in tech. I think that's really important. We're going to spend some time there. But sourcing candidates. I did see a lot of hands earlier on where do I find talent? How do I source? Where am I going to go? How do I enable it? How do I be able to hire more women in the tech space? Then also hiring. What challenges do we have in the hiring processes that are maybe creating barriers for women to get in? So there's some areas there. Retention. How do we retain? Because we can't just hire and then not retain our employees. We need to make sure that we're focusing on the retention side as well. And then removing bias. There's a lot here. In each one of these, right, we could do a full conference on its own, a full day workshop on each of these areas. So we're going to hit them very high level. But I would love your feedback on Which of these is the most important to you? So we're gonna do another quiz. All right, so you can kind of scroll down here too. But pick your top 3. And it'll help me today to understand what are the biggest challenges that you might be facing in your organizations so that we can tailor today's, hopefully, conversation, right, in this room on how do we better engage, hire, and retain talent. What's going to be the most important for you? Skills development, great. Sourcing candidates, looks like it's kind of coming up as a number 1. Addressing stereotypes and sexism. All very important. I think those are coming through. Let's see. How to become a better ally. I saw that kind of pop up a little bit. Career pathing. It's shifting a lot. You can see like all of them are important, right? It's kind of hard to see which are the ones that we really want to dig into, but sourcing candidates, we're definitely going to talk about that. I'll spend a little bit more time on that and how we do it with the organizations we're working with at Tech Moms. Skills development, how to then promote addressing stereotypes and sexism. Okay, I'm going to touch on everything, but this helps me to know where I should spend more time today. And then if we end up with more time, we can go back to some of these as well. All right, let me just give it just one moment more. Okay, everybody good with this? Is kind of the focus? Like I said, we're gonna touch on everything, but I just wanted to kind of make sure I spent the right time in the right areas. All right, why? Why do we need to talk about women in IT? So gender equality in general, if you're treating humans equally, it isn't enough to know that it's helpful, but it also makes economic sense. It's not just a nice thing to do, it's critical that you do it, right, for your organization. There's a lot of reasons that this is important in the world. A few years ago, in 2016, I had the opportunity to travel to Senegal, Africa. eBay had sponsored a leadership development program, and I went there thinking I was going to learn about poverty and overcoming hunger. What I learned about was leadership skills and how do we create real change. And the number 1 thing that the Global Hunger Project spoke on was the importance of diversity in making decisions, that you have to have women at the table in order to become self-reliant and overcome poverty. And I remember sitting under the shade of this tree. We're on this like beautiful colored like rug that they sat out in the middle of the village, and we're sitting there, and the CEO of the Hunger Project asked the village chief, what was it like to first start including women in the decision-making process? And he said, well, at first we were really scared. And I was like, what do you mean you were scared? What is there to be scared of, right? And he went on, and he said, well, what we found was things actually got a lot easier. They actually knew a lot about healthcare. They knew a lot about education and helped us solve some of the education issues we had that we just didn't think about. And I remember I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today about the importance of how much easier it got once they started to include more women in their organization. It's the same things that apply. You don't need to go all the way to Africa to learn this. I was like, why don't we bring this back and put it into what we're doing today? Things get easier, problems get solved, things become less challenging in some ways when you have all thoughts being brought to the table, right? I remember seeing a conference once, and they were saying that they don't do all hands meetings, they do all minds meetings. And I love that, like bring every mind to the table, right? And so it's that same idea that, you know, when we have gender diverse companies and organizations, things become a lot easier and you see more higher performance. But inequity is a global issue. What's sad to me is that it would take 135 years to reach parity, which is beyond my lifetime. I won't see it, you won't see it, unless we all start activating and start having these conversations and creating change. So that's why my call to action to everybody in this room today is let's change this number. Why would we allow this to go 135 more years before we reach parity? That doesn't make sense to me. We're all leaders, we can create change, why not? Right? So, we're gonna do a quiz. Ready? This shouldn't be, hopefully this isn't hard. I'm trying to make this, it is late afternoon, right? It is late afternoon, everybody had a cookie, you're having that blood sugar, but this should be an easy little quiz. So if you want to join, you can put in a fake name, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, those all work. You don't have to use your name. But kind of join in, put your name in there. And what we're going to do is 60 seconds. That's a long time. But we're going to do a little quiz. You've got 60 seconds to complete it and see how well you can recognize why it's important for women in IT. Okay, we've got a good group here. We're going to move forward. Okay, counter has started. Let's see. Halfway, and we've got about half the participants finished, so that's a good sign.
Some of these questions. Busy. It's been the traditional lesson.
All right, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay, looks like the majority of you got it right. Woo! Nice job. Give yourself a hand. Awesome. Okay. So there's a couple trick questions in there. I threw in a couple biased statements. Okay? So it's okay. So here's one thing I want you to learn. We all have bias, and it's okay. It's okay, right? We all have them. We all have some things. So, provide a more balanced view to female gender and technology sector issues. There's a reason why companies are 35% more profitable than their competitors when they have diverse teams, and it's because their markets match their employees. Makes sense, right? If you think about it, if your employees match the market that you're tending to, guess what? The problems that you're going to be solving for, you're going to have that perspective. You're going to be able to solve the problems. You're going to have higher profitability. You're going to hit markets that you may not have thought about if you didn't have diverse teams. The next one, we become more in tune with our feelings. The reason why this is biased is because there are lots of feelings. Everybody has feelings. Anger is a feeling. Okay? So there is a biased statement in thinking, well, women are just more in tune with their feelings. Let's just step back from that a little bit, unpack it, understand that it's not just about feelings, right? So the next one, facilitate better problem solving abilities. The reason why problem solving, like I mentioned, we have diverse teams. If you have a problem set where you've got a different perspective coming in to recognize that, it's going to make it a lot easier to maybe solve quicker and have broader perspectives to solve that. Have people to do the busy work. Again, biased statements. There's a whole set of research out there on the fact that often women are assigned the busy work in the office. I had an example I'll share with you. My good friend I went to grad school with, she's an executive at a bank. She's the head of regulatory affairs. And she reports into the CEO of this massive bank. And she called me, she's like, Trina, every meeting they ask me to take the notes. Every single meeting, I am asked to take the notes. So we had this little conversation about, why do you say, well, hey, Bob, next time let's just round robin this, right? The events, the planning, the this and that. Those take away from your day-to-day ability to skill up, promote, be able to find, they're the busy work, right? And so really it's important to understand that those are things we need to watch out for, that we're all sharing kind of those like things that take away from your career development. But you do see increased performance. So those are all good. Hopefully that was just kind of a little teaser on things that, the benefits of women in being part of the team, engaging, and why you want to see more of that within your organization. All right, so number one was the test. I don't know why that came up, but it did. So I thought I'd done a reset, so we'll ignore that one, but Tony, Bob, Sally, James, y'all, I think there was a long list of everybody that got it right. It was a pretty simple quiz. So thanks for everybody for participating in that. All right, and do a quick time check. We are going to watch a little video. This is about tech moms and the organization. I think sometimes it's easier to see these from the view. And we had partnership. We get a lot of corporate partnerships. Meta, Pure Good, who I saw was here, and Comcast, all major partnerships with us at Tech Moms. So I'm going to play this little video, about 2.5 minutes. We won't watch
As a software developer, I was so excited. I loved the great pay, the flexibility, and the chance to work on challenging projects. But all the time I kept asking myself, where are all the other women?
That's why we created Tech Moms. We provide technical training, career exploration, and a long-term community of support to help women find the professional pathway that's right for them. I was working 72 hours, 6 to 7 days a week. I wanted to get out of the hamster wheel and have more presence at home.
Before Tech Moms, I was mother-free, staying home. For the first time in my life, I have a salary job. There's a lot of flexibility in this industry. Working from home, a couple of days in the office.
Our women come from full-time caregiving backgrounds. They come from job roles that are maybe jobs but not really careers. We have women that come from severe poverty, from abusive relationships and spouses, and so we've seen them be able to protect their families, protect their kids, and walk away from these difficult situations.
The Tech Moms community is amazing. I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome, and that's one of the things that many women that I talk to experience is saying, we have been absolutely floored by the internal support that our Tech Moms are receiving from each other. That's one of the most special things that we've created.
Tech is one of the fastest growing sectors in the world. There are thousands of tech jobs currently unfilled. We have a disconnect between this talent shortage and all this underutilized resource of women saying, let's get to work.
We have seen such a huge demand for women who recognize this program might be the key to what they're looking for their careers.
I think everybody should consider and really try to get into tech. It is the best decision I've ever made. I loved it, and this is where my career will end. I'll never leave. Companies should support Tech Moms because that is a fantastic investment in our pipeline future. We are constantly changing and evolving, and I think it's one of the really amazing skill sets that they teach these women. It's not just the coding that they learn, it's that, hey, like, I have gone from something I had no idea before, and I'm gonna create something new with it. And that's what we're all about.
The time to invest in their long-term diverse workforce is right now.
We are always interested in finding candidates from non-traditional backgrounds. The Tech Moms group is a great source for that. We were actually introduced to Kaylin, who we hired from Tech Moms, through one of the members of the Tech Moms team, and she was outstanding.
Being a sponsor of Tech Moms has been awesome because it's enabled us to be very specific about, hey, we have spots available for women.
We rely entirely on donations and support from our partners across the spectrum. Companies like Comcast, Meta, Pure Storage, and others.
All right, so I'll stop right there. But that hopefully gives you a little bit of understanding of the organization and the work that we're doing. And it's been a really incredible ride. So where this organization came from is I was working at eBay, and like I mentioned, I was frustrated. You know, I'm really passionate. I'm a global president of women in IT. I want to hire more women in tech. Where do I find them? I couldn't find local talent either. I was hiring individuals on visas and frustrated like the pipeline issues that we were experiencing. And at the same time, I literally had women knocking on my front door saying, Trina, show me how to get into tech. I hear there's all this opportunity. How do I get in? Like, that's a huge disconnect, right? And I could sense there's this need and this demand, and at the same time saying, we don't have enough people. I think in Utah at the time, there was like 6,000 open tech jobs. And I had all these women saying, hey, I want to get in. Why do we have this gap? And so I started putting together programs, got connected to my two co-founders that you saw in the video. One of them had gone through a similar program out of Silicon Valley called Mother Coders at the time, and so I partnered with them as part of Rice Next, my IT consulting firm, and we started putting together these programs. Got connected to her, it started to grow. We started getting a lot of corporate interest, a lot of government interest. I work with higher education. I serve on multiple higher education boards, and so I was able to tap into our higher education space. And it just came together, this amazing pipeline. And basically what Tech Moms is a bridging program. It's demystifying the tech industry. How many has ever been frustrated on the number of tech roles when you go out to look at a job and it's listed how many ways? Give me some numbers, like 30, 20, 10? The same job role, right? Can you imagine trying to enter this industry and trying to figure out what these pathways are and how to get in and where do I go and what training do I need and where's my community and, right? Like, no wonder they're not coming in. It's just so overwhelming. And so as we put together the program, we run a 2-month program. It runs Saturdays from 10 to 4. And we give introduction to HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript so they get enough coding skills to go, okay, I got this. That's all it is? I can do this, right? Like, there's this perception of who is doing coding and not recognizing it's them. So all of our technical trainers, all our TAs, everybody that we have come present are women. Because we really believe in the be it, see it model of they need to be able to see that other women are doing this, other women of color. We really put a large importance on that. And so we do HTML, coding, all of these core skills, but we also bring in other technical roles so that they learn cybersecurity, UI, UX, technical sales, digital marketing, technical project management, quality assurance. Like, they just go, what? All of this, I can find a fit for anybody in tech, right? You give me somebody, I figure out their personality, what their interests are, we can find a fit in tech. And it's not just return to work. We have all the way from high school diplomas to doctorates. I have banking executives that become product managers within a matter of months. And it's been really amazing the journeys that I've seen take place. Like, some of the first examples, we launched our first cohort in the middle of COVID, believe it or not. So we were doing temperature checks and social distancing and the whole thing, trying to make sure that we could move this forward. I remember we had this meeting and like, do we really move this forward? And we all like, yeah, we need to do this. Who knew that we were gonna have the Great Recession, the female recession, the Great Resignation, like all this upshake was going to happen in the midst of us launching this. 2 of our women completed our program, went in to get boot camps, did full stack development, came back to us and said, we want to do a dev shop, so we now run a web dev shop in the middle of Tech Moms. That was their idea. That's the type of movements we start to see. Like, these aren't all my ideas. I just enabled the community that they come together. We had, I saw on social one day, all of a sudden, all of like 20 of our Tech Mom graduates had gotten together and were doing JavaScript programs together. And it's scheduled, got a vendor to sponsor their night studies. So like 1-800-CONTACTS is now sponsoring all of their group study nights, and it's pretty cool. So they're just building and creating this connection, right? And that's what was missing. It's just like, oh, okay, I've got this, I've got a group behind me, I have a community behind me, I can do this. And it's been amazing to watch that transformation occur. All right, so we're gonna make a shift a little bit. Within your app, by the way, you have the polling, but there's a Q&A on the other side as well. And when we get to the end, if you do have questions as we're moving through this, please put those into the Q&A. And one wanna make sure that I'm addressing those. If we don't have time today, I'll make sure I reply. And you can always reach out to me directly if there's something that you wanna take offline from the app. So we talked a little bit about talent acquisition, right, as being one of the important topics. So I wanted to make sure we're addressing that one a little bit. So I'm gonna just give the top 5. Like I said, we're limited on time, so I just wanna kind of get your brain thinking a little bit. So hiring processes. When you're looking for talent acquisition and trying to identify skilled resources, you really do need to look at your processes, because sometimes individuals won't apply, or they get filtered out, or something happens. One of the biggest things we do at Tech Moms is making sure that if one of our talent applies to a role, I'll get a hold of the CEO. I'll be like, hey, I got a Tech Mom applying. Make sure that she makes it through the pipeline, because our ETS systems are broken. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this where they apply, nobody calls them back, I make a phone call, guess what? They get interviewed. And they get hired. So we need to really take a closer look at our HR systems and processes and policies and make sure that we've got avenues for these communities to be able to get in. The other one is job descriptions. So I was working with Amazon, and they were really excited about working with us. And I'm not trying to call out Amazon, but it's just kind of a general description. But we were working on a returnship program, and they sent me over the job description, and it said 7 to 9 years experience software developer on a returnship. How are they going to qualify?
It's ridiculous.
Right? Like, I know as a leader, it is really hard. Like, I've done it, right? I'm writing a job description, and I want to write for like my dream person that's gonna come in and save the day and do everything for me, right? And you want to throw everything in that job description to make sure you're getting everything there. But what that does is people will not apply. They'll opt out. I've had to coach people into jobs so many times that says, well, it needs all of this, and I'm telling you, I look at the job title, no, that is not that job. That is like 7 jobs that they put into that job description. So just be careful, right? Like, you want people to apply. You want to be able to go for the job, exactly what the job is, and sometimes you might want to go directly to a community to be able to say, here's the job, don't just put it out. I work with my HR partner and it's out there, and wait. Because it probably won't come. You've got to shake it up a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership performance. If you're running teams, how do you make sure that this is part of the discussion continually? Usually, performance metrics drives behavior. So what metrics are you looking at? And then expanding those talent sources. You might go direct to a community like Tech Moms, or there's Women Who Code. There's a lot of different talent sources to work with in the community that is doing great work and has great talent pipelines for you to work with. It takes a little extra work, but guess what? You're accessing additional talent pipelines. And then as you're working with your talent recruiter, really talk to them about becoming a talent coach. Because if you just sit and wait for somebody to apply, instead start looking at them and saying, hey, you'd be a great fit for this, here's why, here's how we can work with you, here's what our company is about. We're going to talk a little bit more on that in a little bit more depth. So LinkedIn is awesome. I love LinkedIn. I do a lot on LinkedIn, but I can tell you when you're looking at reentry or women coming back into the workforce, they're not on LinkedIn. In fact, a lot of them may have the skills, has been doing freelance work or been working on things, but they're not familiar with LinkedIn. So they're not going to be there. So where do you go? You're going to need to find different talent sources. So if any of them are doing boot camps, so a lot of the colleges or your boot camps or any of those, go work with them and even put together scholarships or programs that enable more women to come into their program, and you can start sourcing from there pretty quickly. Those are easy ways to be able to get in and get beyond that LinkedIn just wait, but it's not where you're going to find diverse talent. always. Sometimes yes, just not as much. And then review your referral partners would be the other suggestion I would have. How many have like a referral bonus within your organization? If you refer somebody, then you get like a payback. I think a lot of organizations do stuff like that. So the problem with those is if your network looks like you, you're gonna hire who looks like you. So 2 things there. Look at your referral program, and instead of just saying refer, just blindly, refer diverse talent. Can you bring more diverse talent to us? That to me is really worth it, right? You're paying. You can find us diverse talent, get your teams to work. And then also broaden your own network. That's Women in Tech, we're out there. If you're not connected to us, go find us, because we're there. Build it, find it, network. And build those relationships beyond your own. One of the exercises, I remember going through this myself. Probably 15 years ago, somebody said, hey Trina, you should look at your network and see who you're connected to and see if it's diverse. And I remember looking and going, oh, whoa, no, it's not. And I had to be very intentional about changing my network and who I networked with and reaching out to individuals that didn't look like me, didn't have the same college degree pathways, didn't have the same location even. Like, just take a look at your network. It's a really powerful way to start tapping into other communities and other networks, right? We all know the power of a network. Okay, and we talked about a few of these, and so due to time, my mind just kind of goes through. There's some high-level things here. At the end of this, I got, if you text me, I'll send you a copy of this presentation. So you all will have this, because we're not going to be able to go into everything. But ATS systems we talked about, blind resumes, standard interviews. This is a big one, actually. And when you interview somebody, you might have biases, and you'll ask certain questions to one individual you don't ask to the next. So standardized interview questions help a lot with that, because then they don't have the opportunity to answer the same questions. Leadership accountability, and then just looking for ways to remove opportunities for bias. Like I said, we all have them. They are going to happen. Look for ways to block bias within your policies and practices, okay? All right, okay, now I think we talked about job descriptions a bit, so I'm gonna move forward. Okay, let's do a check-in real quick, because I think I'm losing people. All right, quick check-in. All right, so how was this section on sourcing and hiring? You're already practicing all these approaches, and I'm doing amazing. I got this, right? That you? Already practiced all of these approaches. Let's see. Oh, learned something new, and I'm excited to put it in practice. That's awesome. None of these really apply to me, or I'm overwhelmed, but I'm open. You can select all if you want. All right, that's great. Looks like we're learning. That's the point. That's good. Okay. All right, retention. This is one thing that I like to talk about a lot. It's like, we don't just hire for diversity or women in general, because guess what? They come in, and if you haven't got inclusive environments where people feel like they belong, guess what? They're gonna leave. And we know in the competitive landscape we're in, losing employees is costly. 1.5 times to replace an employee, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to invest in our employees, and we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can do that, or how we can create higher retention rates. So understand your current engagement. How many of you do engagement surveys? Do you have any? Probably a third is what I saw. So engagement surveys are a great way to kind of get a sense for how your employees are feeling, how much are they feeling a sense of belonging, inclusion, areas of feedback. Be open to it, right? Don't go, I don't want to hear anything, la 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 la. Use those surveys for feedback, okay? Results-oriented leadership. I really want to focus on this. If you were to do one thing today, you're going to take one action. Be clear on your goals. goals in your organization? What do we need to accomplish, and how do you align that to that employee? Because when you get to careers and promotion, guess what? There's no confusion on, did I do the right thing or not? It kind of removes that opportunity for bias, or, hey, you were working on the wrong thing, you were doing all the office housework, sorry. That results-focused push for what is the highest goal for your organization, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't, make adjustments, get status updates weekly. That helps resolve a lot of these things that happen from an equity and promotion cycle perspective. It also enables conversations in career pathing, which is another really important perspective of what is it that you want to do in your career? Do we have those conversations on a frequent basis? Do we allow them to come to us with that conversation? We're going to talk about well-being. Everybody understands the importance, I think now. There's probably no one in this room that understands after this last 2 years the importance of mental health well-being discussions, and that it's individualized. And providing equal time. This is another issue I even experienced within my career, where I would get excluded from team outings, team participation, from luncheons, because my leaders were afraid of being alone with a woman, or having them part of the group, or whatever that bias is, does impact somebody's ability to move up. And so giving equal time to all your employees, however you're comfortable in doing that, is really important. Those all lead to retention of your employees, because they then feel like you're open to listening and spending and investing in them. So from a career pathing perspective, I just want to deep dive into this just a little bit, and then we're going to move on. But the Great Resignation, the female recession, all these really high attrition rate issues really can be solved through conversations. Conversations with our employees on your career. What do you want to do? How can I enable that? Where do you want to go? What are the opportunities that you see? It may not be in your organization, and that's okay, because they'll want to stay working for you because you're having that conversation, right? It's just knowing that you're invested in that person goes a long, long way. There is a link here that I wrote an article on. One of the things I saw coming up at the beginning was skills development. How do we really retain and hire for diversity is focusing on skills development in multiple ways. Career pathing is a great way to do that. And so it talks about a lot of the programs that I interviewed, Amazon, Job Nimbus, a lot of these different companies, and how they were doing skills development and talent development, and how it was leading to higher retention and rates within their organization. So that's just kind of a takeaway for you. All right, this is our okay, I've been blah, blah, blah. All right, so well-being. This is such a big part of our society anymore, and the importance of understanding it and understanding who we're working with and the aspects here. And so empathetic, I saw that in our cloud word quiz at the beginning, right? Is empathetic leadership, the importance that this is the future leader of being empathetic, knowing that our experience is going to be different than your experience. Everybody's different. That makes it really hard for a leader, right? And so understanding and having those conversations with your employees is so important. And so you remember when I had that nice little slide of my career and the work I was doing? Remember that? That's like 3 hours ago when we started this? Yeah. This is really what my life has been like. This is reality. How many people feel like this in their own life? Maybe not this bad. Hopefully not cancer, hopefully not divorce. A lot of these challenges, right? We have families, we have relationships, we have people that are happening outside of work. And I think that the importance of understanding and being, I saw vulnerability on there, right? This is vulnerable for me to share this with everybody. But it's important for us to recognize everybody has life going on in addition to work. We got a lot of things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that sometimes
We're not saying to dump it all at work and be, you know, talking about it, but recognize people go through things. And I remember when I was at eBay, I had this really great leader, and I was going through, you can see I blended a family of 8 kids. So I have 3 sons, one of them sitting up front with me, being my media production lead right now.
Nice.
So I had remarried. My new husband had 5 kids, so I have 3, he has 5, it's like 27 kids. And I am just like, what? You know? And I didn't want to give up my career. I think this is the biggest thing, is we think women want to give up our career for our families. I love my family, but I love my career, and there's no reason it's an or.
Right.
It's life and family. Life and work and I did not want to give it up, but I did need to have a conversation with my manager, and it was really hard for me to have this conversation, and I went to him and I said, can I have lunch with you? Like, here's what I'm going through. And he said, well, that's fine. What we'll do, and this is back before COVID and remote working and the whole thing, he was very forward thinking. He said, well, 3 days a week, why don't you work from home? 2 days a week, you can come in, check in, make sure your teams are good. I manage global teams for eBay, so most of them were remote anyway, and working different time zones half the time anyway. And so we made this adjustment, so I could leave at 2:30, go pick up my stepkids, make sure they got home, they were taken care of, I went back to work, and I just made it work for me and my schedule. And that was so important for me, so I didn't have to leave the workforce. And that lasted probably till the next school year was over, and then I went back full-time into work. It was temporary. But how many times do we set standard policies that say, this is the way you have to work, you have to be in the office, or you have to be, you know, don't do that. Like, try and figure out ways to say, this is the goals that we have, going back to our results focus, right? Here's what we need to do. What can we do within the team? How are we going to make this work, and have the conversations for flexibility? Standard policies are not going to work. So this one I feel like is really important. It can really shift a lot of those retention issues. If we can just become a lot more aware that people have life going on. Every single one of us at periods of time in our life will need to deal with something. Let's make it okay to have those conversations. And then the last thing here before we kind of move into some of the sexism in the workplace, some of those things we're going to touch on very briefly before we wrap up here today. Really create visibility. One of the things that was on there was sponsorships. I think some of you had really wanted to talk about this. Sponsorships, I feel like, are so critical. Mentorships are great, but sponsorships is where promotions occur. So everybody, I don't know if this is how your organization works, but in ours, we would have the promotion battle. We'd go into, as leaders, we'd all get together, and everybody would battle for their team, and whoever was the best at the promotion battle would win. So my career was always left up to whoever was battling for me. Anybody else ever seen this in their career? Yeah, so it was, the biggest thing is those sponsors. It is how our world works. So somebody needs to be advocating on your behalf. If you don't have somebody advocating for you, you're not going to get ahead. And so sponsorships, if you aren't advocating for somebody that doesn't look like you, or for a woman, or someone else, just know that they probably don't have the same level of sponsorship as others. Start being an advocate, speaking openly, vocally, talking about them, making sure that people know the work that they've been doing, giving them push projects that allow them to get more visibility. Those are critical in creating equity in the workforce. All right, we're gonna do another check-in time. All right, we're not concerned about retention issues, we're all good. All good. Learned some great suggestions. I'm eager to apply, overwhelmed, but open to changes again, or sorry, what was that? I dozed off. I may or may not have seen a couple of those, so. All right, we're eager, awesome, super excited. Okay.
All right, so I know we've got about 10 minutes. I'm gonna just talk high level. Like I said, you're gonna be able to text to get the slides because there's a whole other training session on recognizing and responding to sexism. And this can be a very heavy topic, right? It's even for me, teaching it sometimes can be emotionally and very draining because I lived a lot of this most of my career, so it becomes really challenging. So just recognize that would be kind of the key call out, but just be open to recognizing it. I'm gonna just share one story just to kind of bring it to light, what we're talking about, dealing with, and then I'll go through high level and we'll open up for questions. So just a few months ago, I get asked a time, like, well, does sexism still exist? Yeah, it does. It didn't go away. Just a few months ago, I was at an event, and a friend of mine was introducing me to someone else. And I walked up, I've never met this gentleman before, and I walked up and he goes, yeah, you're too bossy. What? I'm like, I'm being punked right now, right? Like, just say that. And I looked at my friend and I'm like, and then I'm like, excuse me, what? And he went to his phone, he wouldn't look at me. And I'm like, okay, that was really awkward. Really, I didn't, and you don't know how to respond. I think when these things happen, like when it happens, you're like, what the? Yeah, I'm not gonna swear. But you don't, you're just like, did that just really happen? And you don't know how to respond, you're kind of caught in it. And so I think the key thing is to go, oh, you know what, let's allow for people to come say something. So the other part of the story is that a few months later, I went to another friend and said, hey, you should really meet so-and-so, and it happens to be this gentleman. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that. So they actually take me to his office to meet him. And I show up, he doesn't remember. He has no memory. So when we talk unconscious bias, that's how deeply unconscious it is sometimes. It just kind of like came out. And I think at the time it just kind of came out and like, and then he didn't know what to do about it. But you can be intentional and go, oh, I apologize. I don't know where that came from, right? Like, recognize it in the moment and that it happened. And if you don't recognize it, create an environment where somebody can say and go, do you recognize what you said? Do you understand that happened? And make it okay to have those conversations. Like I said, we all have bias. We all do it. I've done it. I do things all the time where I'm like, oh, can't believe I did that, but then I can intentionally say, I apologize. I didn't mean to say whatever it was. But you can catch yourself in it, right? We're all adults. We can catch ourselves in it and say, yeah, I apologize. I'm sorry that happened. So there are multiple ways, so that's why I'm saying this whole conversation on sexism in the workplace, I got 4 slides like this of sexism, stereotypes, unconscious bias, all the forms that are happening when it comes to sexism in the workplace. And it can become very overwhelming, so I suggest you kind of break it down, take it bite by bite, right? But don't avoid it. Don't avoid these conversations, they're really important. And the more aware you are, you can never go back to being unaware. That's the good news. You're on the path to change, right? So there's unconscious bias, gender inequity. You can get really defensive. If you meet somebody that's a feminist, you ever feel yourself getting angry, that's coming from these unconscious biases. We have gender pay, promotion, hiring, objectification. There's a whole 7 different forms of objectification. Stereotypes, undervaluing women. Like I said, there's just not enough time, but I put it in here so that at least you can have a reference to go, okay, let me understand what each of these areas are. So just very briefly, some of the solutions here is recognizing that we do need to focus on solving the inequities, creating opportunity for promotion. If we don't start now, that 135 years, I don't even know if that will ever come. We gotta start, okay? And there's some other suggestions in here for retaining promotion. These are examples of what other organizations have done. But just to wrap up, here's some strategies both male and female allies can use. Create relationships. There's a leadership quote. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Right? Except for DEI, that's just too uncomfortable. I can't do that. Except for this or whatever it is you're most uncomfortable with, go after it. Tackle your biggest fear. If it's sexism in the workplace or gender issues or feminism, go get over it. Get uncomfortable. Right? That's what leaders do. So you gotta figure out what type of leader do you want to be. Policy, we talked about that. Leadership development. Put these types of topics into your leadership development discussions. Recognizing goes into sponsorships. Really making sure that you're treating as equals, not undervaluing work or certain deliveries. Give credit, sponsorships. This is fun in meetings. Watch for interruption. I still have this happen to this day. We're speaking over or talking over. Call out biases on somebody else's behalf. If you see somebody else is having an issue within a meeting, hell, like always being the one to have to become across defensive and defending myself. If you see it, say, hey, let's let somebody else speak. Or I didn't hear from you. Or you can really be that ally. And then just make sure your promotion and hiring goals are diverse. Pretty simple, right? And put those things together. All right. We have a couple, I didn't leave a ton of time, so I will stay after to answer some of these. But there is a question, I'll just hit the top few here. How many organizations are allowing people to set their own hours, not just 8 to 5? More women can be engaged if they know they can work off hours. That is very true. Part-time is a big thing I get asked for a lot of women. I don't have the exact number of how many organizations. Through the organizations I've worked with, I see a lot of hybrid, right? These hybrid, and that's why I said there is no set policy. What works in your company or organization isn't always going to work in another. What I would say is allow each team to identify what's going to work for them and leave it at the team leader level for that one. All right, you must value your employees as a family and that they're the most important part of their life that equals happy, productive employee. Very true, giving time for that. And that's, I appreciate that statement, thank you. And if you're a good mentor, then you'll be a good sponsor. You should always care and want more for them. Very true, thank you. And then the last one I've got here, with all these programs like Girls in STEM in middle and high school over the last 20 years, oh, I lost it, there we go. Why did the number go down? All the things we just talked about. There's a lot of social issues, right? The perceptions, they have a lot of research on like that 8th grade period time where you get set into stereotypes and women believe the stereotype. It's just become more pervasive, and that's why it's going down. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, right? I listed a lot, but that's probably one of the main ones is kind of the social pressure norms, perspectives, and what we're trying to break out of and creating that see it be it of seeing more women in tech allows for, oh, this is an option for me. So, all right, well, I know that we're up on time. I'll stay up here today. Appreciate everybody for coming. Like I said, here's the number. If you want to get a copy of the presentation. And on your poll, there is a rating for this session. If you don't mind giving me feedback, I always like to get feedback on how the session went. So, thank you everyone, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Trina. The FLGISA would like to thank you for your presentation. This concludes today's session. Tonight's CGCIO graduation reception starts at 6 p.m.